Welcome to another episode of The Cynical Writer. Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that the best way to support this channel is to purchase my books, and I've left some links in the description section in case you're interested. Now, how can Expressionism be used in literature? A lot of people think that German Expressionism is purely a film movement because it was first given a name after World War I, and it was used in many Germanic horror films such as Nosferatu and The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and eventually it made its way into America during the 1930s and 40s, where it was used quite a lot in film noir. But Expressionism has actually existed in almost all forms of media, including painting, including literature, even though it didn't always have that title. But Expressionism existed even in the 19th century. And I think that writers can use Expressionism in order to reveal the psychological complexities that exist within characters. For example, I used it in one of my stories where I said, Alice gently pulled back the door, weary of the outside world. The encroaching darkness, aided by the fading fragrances of life, distorted all visible inferences of her soft physique, sparing only the paleness of her eyes. Now, I used Expressionism there because I showed you a contrast of light and shadow. The light was coming from her eyes, but everything else was dark. And therefore, I think I used Expressionism very well, because Expressionism is all about using a contrast of light and shadow. But it's not only about that, because Expressionism can also be used to create a surreal atmosphere, a dream-like atmosphere, where you're not sure what belongs to physical reality and what is only taking place within the character's mind. I mean, you could have a scene, for example, where a character is remembering something, but it's like it's happening right in front of them. They're seeing a memory as if it's happening right in front of them. So there are just so many ways to use Expressionism in writing. And of course, it first got the name again in the 1920s, and mainly because the German landscape was absolutely demolished after World War I, and therefore there were a lot of crooked trees, a lot of injured soldiers, and the country had basically been destroyed. Now, of course, it would be destroyed again later on in World War II, but because of that, Germans began experimenting with dark lighting, I guess you could say, because that was going to reflect the mood that they were in. Very often, artistic movements will come about because of the sociological things that are occurring in society. For example, in the 19th century, Expressionism was used so much because tuberculosis was rampant, and that's why Edgar Allan Poe used a lot of Expressionism in his writing, because people were just dying all around him. And it wasn't so much that people died of a young age, it was mainly that disease was so rampant that you couldn't tell who was going to live to an old age and who wasn't going to live to an old age. So Expressionism often comes about because of psychological grief, because of psychological strife. But again, it's all about creating a dream-like atmosphere, well, where you can't tell what's real and what's not real. And that's why I really love Expressionism, because naturalism, I think, can be a bit boring at times. I mean, it can be beautiful if you're writing about a landscape, but when it comes to writing about people and about interiors, I actually prefer Expressionism because it's just a lot more unique and a lot more interesting in my opinion. Well, I hope you enjoyed my speech for today. Like I said before, if you would like to support this channel, you can check out my books in the description section. Don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, goodbye.